Not all stories are chronological, especially when considering the tale of Quentin Tarantino. This here is the ninth film by Quentin Tarantino. It is wanted one way or another as a stage play, a novel, or a movie. When the credits roll on this film, my panel and me are taking it to a rating. Is there anybody here in the chat committed to stopping this panel from doing that? Well, it looks like the Fantasmagorium show proudly presents Bullets, Blades, and Babes as we review The Hateful Eight. Today we are joined by Ben, our good friend from Cinema Gulp. I am Scotty R37. Catherine is on brain detail, and Steve just busted a 100-year-old guitar. How are you guys doing this evening?
Very good.
Very good.
Wonderful.
One of these days, you guys are going to tell me that I was muted the whole time. Anyway, Ben, how are you?
I'm good, guys. Thanks for having me on for this one, and thank you for rescheduling it so I can talk about it, because this is one of my favorite Tarantino movies. I know that it's not everyone's, but it's one of mine. So.
Ben, you're a little low.
What's that?
You're a little low. Your mic's a little low.
Is it?
Up just a little bit.
That's weird. Okay.
Thank
Well, carry on.
Awesome. Oh, by the way, Scotty, great intro.
Oh, cheers.
Scott, you did screw up on one thing, though. It's the 8th film, not the 9th.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, is it the 8th? Oh, it's the 9th episode of Martini, or of Bullets, Blades, and Babes. That's why
Steve,
I got it messed up.
Am I better, Steve? Am I better?
Yes. Better. Scotty's hot, though. Scott.
Yeah, he's a little hot. Of course he's hot.
Yeah.
I can take it down. Scotty too hotty.
Scotty too hotty.
So, Ben, when this is one of your favorites, as you just mentioned, when was the last time you saw it?
I watch this movie like once a month. I'm not kidding. I don't watch it in its entirety. I love to fall asleep to it. And I usually get, it depends on what version I'm watching, but I usually get to right when they get to Minnie's haberdashery, and then I'm out. But I've probably seen it in its entirety maybe 12, 15 times.
Wow.
I watch it a lot. I love it. I think it's one of the Tarantino movies that gives you every sense visually, the sounds. It almost makes you smell the stew, the horse shit. There's so much in this movie. It's so detailed and so emphasized in every way that it hits all the senses for me. So I watch it a lot. I love it.
Oh, it's gorgeous. It is gorgeous. I will give you that, and it does definitely create the atmosphere. Kat, you have quite a journey with The Hateful Eight.
Yeah, I saw it the theatrical cut once, not in theaters though. I saw it on Blu-ray, and I didn't watch it again for nearly 7 until today. I watched the extended version, which was good. I'm not sure what was extended by it because I couldn't exactly remember. So I still remembered the main story, but I didn't remember who was who. So it was almost like seeing the movie for the first time again. This is also my favorite Tarantino movie, period.
Oh,
it's
nice.
Easily his best movie by far. I think all the characters are very engaging. I never get bored by it. The tension and suspense is there all the way through. I especially love the first 40 minutes with the carriage ride. It's like I like how distrusting Kurt Russell is. Oh, like you, I know you. Oh, I guess I do. Get on the. And then you bringing in the the old Confederate bushwhacker. And it's like, oh geez, now it's gonna get worse. And it's like, I almost wanted the whole movie to just be the carriage ride to the haberdashery. And how many other people they're gonna be finding who are trying to bum rides on it to get any further. But even when they get there, just all of these moments of tension, like when John Ruth goes around inside the haberdashery demanding everybody give up their guns and wondering like how's that gonna go. Or when you have, Sam Jackson trying to discern who's who and what actually happened, doing his whole Sherlock Holmes type deal. Or the guitar, and you're just waiting for something. Because even though we knew that, the antique guitar did get destroyed, you're still kind of waiting. It's like interesting that he even that John Ruth gave her permission to play the guitar, and where is this going? Oh, okay, that's where it's going. So in the whole thing with just Sam Jackson egging on the Confederate colonel or whatnot, and it just gets more and more absurd and hysterical at the same time. And it's and just the way that the bushwhacker is trying to earn the Confederate general's respect, and he can't stand the fact that he'll be willing to sit down and eat with with the bounty hunter, but not with me. And I was like, this is it's too good. It hits it on all the right notes, and like Ben says, the 65 millimeter film stock that they used with its 70 millimeter presentation just puts you right there. I wish every movie ever was shot on 65 because it's the best format you can get. Because you do feel like you're right there, like you said, smelling the horse shit, smelling the stew, tasting, and all of that. So I absolutely love this movie. And the ending is just great. And just like you can't help but cheer them on. It's like
and Steve, you didn't have a chance.
Real quick, you're not
sorry.
alone. You're not alone, Kat. Cinema Gulp's own Devin, if you've ever seen Devin on the show, it's his favorite Tarantino movie as well. So, so you're not the only one.
And Steve, you didn't get a chance to revisit, but you have seen the film.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to see it 70 millimeter on the roadshow.
Oh, nice.
Badass. I remember watching the very beginning of the movie and these beautifully set up sequences and shots. Shout out to, I think his name is Robert Richardson.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The cinematographer.
Yep.
Beautiful shots. And I was like, this movie is gorgeous. And in that presentation, it was even better. Yeah, dude. This isn't my favorite Tarantino movie, but it's up there. It's one of his best movies. In my opinion, it's one of his best movies. I love everything about it. I really like the kind of the character development in this movie as opposed to some of the other movies. They seem a little bit more fleshed out and rounded.
Yeah,
totally. For me, which kind of reminds, in a weird way, this reminds me of Reservoir Dogs, the way he the character development. Not in that way, but yeah, I really enjoyed this film. So I believe in that presentation I saw, it's basically the extended version. I remember there was a in the middle. I can't remember exactly what part, but we had an intermission, and so it was cool. It was really cool to watch it.
Yeah, there's apparently 3 different cuts of it. There's the 2-hour 47-minute theatrical cut. There's the extended cut that has the intermission and the overtures with it, and then there's like the excluding the recaps and the credits, the roughly 3-hour 20-minute Netflix version.
Yeah, the miniseries is the one where you really notice the new footage and even storylines that were excluded. Yeah, the miniseries is way different. It's very cool.
I got the miniseries running right now above me. So if I'm looking up all the time, it's because I'm checking out this gorgeous film.
But you're so right, Steve. Like the characters in this movie, I mean, fuck, like they're so fleshed out. Some of them change allegiances halfway through and then change back, or it's totally like, I think people were calling it kind of a Reservoir Dogs cowboy movie.
Yeah.
And it is to an extent, but it's obviously way more over the top than Reservoir Dogs.
You can tell that that Tarantino took a lot of time with these characters. These are probably characters that have been, kind of bouncing around in his mind for a long time because, kind of like the Reservoir Dogs ones, characters, they seem, really palpable, like they're real.
Well, throughout my research, and yes, it'll be shocking to some that I do a little bit of research, not just watch the movie. But through the research, apparently this was initially intended to be some sort of sequel to Django Unchained, initially conceived as a novel.
Sam Jackson's character was supposed to be Django, but just years later,
And then there was was it the Sony leak? I know that the script got leaked, and he basically said,
not from the Sony leak. It was just a random fuckwad who leaked it. Yeah.
Oh, it was Bruce Dern's agent.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he shared the script with him, and like he was reading it, and then his agent got a hold of it because the agent was like the go-between to shepherd the physical script back to Tarantino or whatever, and they just like the one that leaked it, or somebody with his agent's company leaked it. I remember that now.
That's kind of a shit thing to do, man.
Well, yes. And then, so at the aftermath of that, it was performed as sort of a live script reading, and that was where it was going to lay. And what was I think it was Jodie Domergue was played by James Remar in the reading, the live reading. I didn't get the full cast, but I was just like, oh, James Remar, that'd be an interesting choice.
Love James
Remar. Yeah. And then eventually it was retooled and brought again to 70 millimeter or 65 millimeter, 70 millimeter presentation for the Roadshow.
Yeah. James
which
Remar
is
is a much more convincing cowboy than one Channing Tatum. No disrespect, Channing Tatum. I think James Remar was actually in Django, wasn't he? I think he was.
I don't recall, but that. Oh yes, it was. Yeah, he was because I remember from the soundtrack. Last Chance.
Candy's henchman. Yeah.
Last Chance, Vince.
Though I admit that Channing Tatum kind of sells it that the Domergues are a bunch of dipshits, which you kind of get the sense of.
Yeah.
Because when you do finally see what was actually going on, and obviously her story about the 15 henchmen is bullshit, there were plenty of other opportunities once the other people came in. All of them came into the haberdashery to just off all of them. Because I remember I did like that thing where Joe Gage is about to shoot John Ruth, and then Judy steps in front of him, and she's like, "Oh well, we got the new sheriff traveling with us too, and the other guy out in the barn." And then he's like, "Shit, we're gonna have to do this the hard way." And he props his legs up on the desk. But even then, once the three of them come in there, like when John Ruth's got his back to everybody, and Dim's kind of looking at him from over here, it's like you got another guy sitting there in the corner. English Pete or whatever could just easily put up the gun, be done with it. It's like, why? Yeah. And the fact that Jody is under the floorboards the whole time and has that good of a shot pretty much anywhere he wants. I thought, admittedly, it's a bit contrived that they're humoring them with all of this, but it's still, you love it. You still enjoy it.
Well, it's funny in retrospect, the way that Daisy yells out, "We got the sheriff of Red Rock with us." She's screaming it basically. And there's a million different times opportunities that Jody could have had at that point. And it's just the movie has to play out before he's shown. So I get it. But it just seemed like they let a lot of time go by.
So I find that this movie for Channing Tatum, just kind of touching on the Channing Tatum thing, is one of the movies where he starts to really pivot. There was a time kind of before this, and even leading right up to this movie where he just wasn't that great of an actor, in my opinion. He was just typecast in a lot of ways. But he took he started working on his craft, and obviously this is when it starts. You can start seeing the change, I think, right around this time in his career, and you start really getting
the first time his abs weren't doing all the acting for him. Yeah.
Which is good, and it shows a lot of confidence that Quentin Tarantino even cast him in this movie in that role. So he must have shown those chops, in the audition.
Well, and I think even with the only real frame of reference that you have for Channing Tatum up until this point was, I don't know, if not one, then both of the 21 Jump Street movies, and then G.I. Joe: The Rise of Cobra,
right?
To the point that
didn't he do one of the movies too before this?
One of
the Magic Mike stuff.
Yeah, he did that, but he had done before this in 2014. He had done Foxcatcher, which to me is still his best performance.
Foxcatcher is really good.
That's good.
Is my audio better, chat? As far as I can tell, all of my levels are great. I don't know what people are hearing, but anyway, sorry guys.
And then he had some cameos in a couple films like Public Enemies, This Is the End, and just little things here and there, and it's like, okay, but you're right. This is kind of, it's a brief role in this movie, but it works.
It was really good, and there's a lot of hot body actors trying to do big budgeted things that won't say certain words that Tarantino requires them to say, and he did it with conviction. So he says one of the most terrible things in this movie.
I wish we could repeat it. Thanks, YouTube.
I don't.
I won't. No, and just speaking of the language of the film, this would probably be the most prominent use of the hard R N-word throughout.
Oh, by far. Yeah. Django might
worse than Django?
I don't know. I think Django beats
Django's pretty bad.
Okay. It's been a while since I've seen.
Somebody want to do a countdown, and no, I don't. That would be a waste.
Yeah.
Of time.
It's probably a pretty easy Google search. I'm sure somebody's already done all the hard work.
Oh yeah, that's been done to death. I'm sure. Yeah.
But then just rounding out the cast, we've touched on Channing Tatum, but we got Kurt Russell, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Samuel L. Jackson, Walton Goggins, who is an actor who is slowly risen, in my opinion of him. Something about him I didn't like at first when I saw him. I don't even remember when I saw him first, but I always sort of rolled my eyes.
God, were you a Son of Anarchy fan?
No.
Oh God, he was so great as the tranny or whatever the word is, the transsexual. Yeah.
He was great.
The first time I ever saw him was Shanghai Noon, and then after that, The Shield, and he was brilliant in The Shield.
The Shield, yeah.
Brilliant.
And that's probably where I remember him from, is The Shield, because I'm a Chickless fan.
And he's brilliant in this too. But I'm sure we'll get to all the actors. But he's fucking so good in this movie.
And they brought back Michael Madsen, who hadn't been in a Tarantino film in a while.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Tim Roth as well.
Mm-hmm.
So good to see him back. Yeah.
Absolutely. And just, again, charismatic, using his, well, I guess he used his native accent in Pulp Fiction as well, but I'm still recalling back to the Four Rooms in that brilliant performance. Am I missing anybody?
Damien Bashir as Bob.
Damien Bashir. So good.
As Bob.
And then let's not forget Zoe Bell, who's not obviously one of the main characters, but God, she's such an amazing, extraordinary woman and stunt person. Like, has a little bit of gets to act a little bit in this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, her timing's off. She's never been that great of an actress, but she's just a legendary stunt performer. And so,
what her name was Six Horse Judy, right? Is that what her name?
Yeah. She does her best with her lines. Like I said, timing's a little off, but man, that chick broke her back during the trailer fight in Kill Bill Volume 2 and kept going. I mean, come on. You gotta love that.
Oh, Zoe Bell is amazing. And my heavens, I forgot one.
James Parks is the stagecoach driver, Obi Jackson.
Yeah, he's
Obi.
kind of the unsung hero of the movie.
Ian Jones is Sweet Dave, and Dana Gurrier is Minnie Mink.
And I think that just speaking to Zoe Bell and the remainder of the true inhabitants of Minnie's haberdashery, making the victims of the haberdashery so likable in such a short period of time was rather genius, because then it is sort of that third act twist where it's like, oh no, they're all bad guys now. They're all bad guys now. Which I thought was really interesting.
In the way they dispense of all the Minnie's haberdashery people, it's fucking brutal, man. Brutal. Like those gunshots, the way they hit people, the way that jar of jelly beans splatters, it's
well, he also goes out of the way to mention that even Minnie is bigoted like them. She's like, Minnie seems to like just about everybody, but she don't like Mexicans, and she has that sign hanging above the bar. And I thought, it's like every character they want to have some type of bad thing to be said about them in some way or another.
I think the world was a vastly different place back then, and like
right, I get it.
But you knew of Mexicans living where she did was like some kind of
right. I get that. Just such a random of all the things that would alert, Marcus to more into what's going on. It's like, let's have it be there's a sign that says we don't like Mexicans is missing. I'm like, of course Tarantino would think of that.
Right. And this is the movie, Kat, where I think when Samuel L. Jackson defends Tarantino and says he can't be racist because I'm the smartest motherfucker in the room. Major Marquez is the smartest guy by a mile in this room. Like, he is assessing the entire he doesn't get in the haberdashery till he's the last one to get in there. There's a lot of shit that happens while he's putting the horses away in the stables. So when he gets there, he observes like the jelly bean on the floor and like where people are placed, and he's like, why is everyone so spread out? Like, he sees that, and you see these shots of his eyes just surveilling the room. Like, he is never comfortable, because he knows something's up. It's like, yeah, that's Samuel L. Jackson's character in a Tarantino movie for you right there.
And that's why he felt safe sniping out the Confederate general or whatever, because he could tell that he's not with the other group of people. It's like they're not going to whip out their guns and try and defend him. So I could just, hey, I don't like this guy anyway, so I'm safe to pick him off.
That's a great point. If anything, it would draw them out.
Right,
maybe,
if they cared, but they don't. So he's just
Yeah.
that's hilarious. Because even Mannix keeps telling him, dude, he's trying to taunt you to pick up the gun. Don't fall for it. And he says it over and over. And you kind of wonder why the Colonel is drawn in to actually believe this story, because you can see the look in his eyes that he just, on the one hand, it's really insulting to his son, but on the flip side, it's clear that
story's
it's not
fake. Do you think the story's fake?
I think it's fake.
I don't know if it's fake. It's such a great story.
I mean, it is a great story, but it's like, if you're the Sam Jackson character, if you're Marcus Warren, and you found this guy's son, and his evil and racist are about to die, he's smart enough to know you're not going to give him a coat. Would you trust him to suck your dick and not bite it off on you? I don't think so.
Because when you're cold, what are your teeth doing, guys?
Chattering.
Yeah, I don't think
that's good
to do that, but that's just me.
So when I first saw the movie, I thought it was a put on, I didn't think it was a real story. I thought it was just to get under his skin, and it sure did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whether it really happened or not, who knows? Or how it happened.
Proud Southern.
He may have ran into his son.
Father hearing that shit.
That's also another interesting thing, is that at first we assume the reason the Colonel doesn't want to get up from the chair is because, like he says, I'm not sitting at that table with that guy. He doesn't want anything to do with him. But then when we see in the flashback, it's because Jody says, you stay in this chair. You do not do anything, and you only say hello, good, thank you, or good night. And it's like, man, that's really great too, because that made me, because I did wonder at first when he accepts kind of the stew from him and gives him permission to sit down. I'm like, why is he doing this? He was so adamant against not liking what's it about, and it's like, oh, that's why. It's because, not that he isn't racist, it's just that, because Jody told him not to leave the chair, but not necessarily that he hates this guy to the point that I won't take at the very least accept the stew from him. And so it's like, okay, so I like how it kind of reframes things like that.
Well, it tells you so much about his character, where he's here. You find out that his wife was recently, like, the fever took her and she died, and then he finds out, I'm here to find my son, and my son's dead. Why is he trying to save his own life so hard? Like, what's there to live for? You're an old man. Everyone's dead that you care about. But it takes until Samuel L. Jackson, says these despicable things, these disrespectful things, that gets him to just pull the gun, which he probably knew he wasn't. He's so slow. He's Bruce Dern, he could barely move. But he tried. But again, he's probably, if we were to rank like the Hateful Eight as important characters, screen time characters, who has spent the most time on, he might be the least.
I think he's
him, or
got
maybe Joe Gage, or what's that?
I think he's got more than Bob and Joe Gage.
Maybe more than Bob. Yeah, maybe more than
more
Bob.
More in terms of dialogue and focus, because it's like Joe's always there, kind of lingering, but he doesn't get as much I kind of waited for Michael Madsen to get his big scene, kind of like he had in Reservoir Dogs. It's like, he's got to give him something, and he never really does. He just kind of
small little pieces.
Yeah, little things here and there, but not like
that's a wonderful thing. Like, he gets a couple of.
I thought it was going to come when he was the last unwounded member of the group who was just kind of still standing by the fireplace. I'm like, okay, something's going to happen here, and it kind of does, but not really, because
I ain't got no gun, Sheriff. That was so good.
I kept second-guessing throughout the film whether or not Mannix was telling the truth about being the impending sheriff or not. And then it wasn't until we got to the climax and he's not finishing off some of these guys. It's like, okay, he must be telling the truth after all. Because I admit it was really funny when John Ruth was saying, he's just making that shit up because he just wanted to ride. He just wanted to stay alive.
The second that he knew who Lance Lerman was, I was convinced he knew who was who was scheduled to be hung. Like, I'm like, okay, I'm convinced.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and then a lot of those guys, like, at the very end of the movie, I mean, we're jumping around like motherfuckers, but I love Joe. Joe Gage has this like very like quiet, subtle thing about him that you don't realize, that he's in love with Daisy. And, Tarantino even kind of I didn't read it from Tarantino. I noticed it in the movie, and then I looked it up, and Tarantino said it. He's like, yeah, Joe Gage or Grouch Douglas was in love with Daisy. And I was like, oh, okay. And it does show. Very subtle, but it shows.
Well, and that was the dynamics between all of them were great. Like, I don't know in terms of what was true and what was not just with Warren's tale of mountaintop fellatio, but also with, were there 15 other guys who were supposed to be showing up? Do you think that that's a real thing?
No.
That's a bluff. Okay.
That was a fumbling gang. That was all of them right there. 'Cause why wouldn't you just bring them all? You know?
Yeah.
I could have sworn in the theatrical cut, and maybe it is there, that he brought that up at some point, that Walton Goggins, that Mannix's big piece de resistance, if you will, to after listening to everything that Daisy had to say, was that if that were true, you would have those 15 guys here.
Yep.
Not
Yeah.
waiting down, and you're not going to risk them to burn the town. But he didn't say that because I did read that there's actually not just different edits because it's longer, but uses different takes and different versions of scenes between the different cuts. So maybe he did in the theatrical. I don't remember, but
Well,
I could have sworn that he did.
She gives away her talent. And by the way, Jennifer Jason Leigh, fucking so goddamn good
Smash
in this movie. And I think she was the only Oscar nominee as far as acting goes.
I think so.
I think Samuel L. should have got one. I think Walden should have got one. But she gives that tell where when Walden Goggins is shot, and he's kind of limping around, he's like, "Hey, bitch," and he's calling her out on her bullshit. He's like, "I just don't believe that. Oh, 15 more at Red Rock." And then she goes, "Oh, well, if you were smart, you'd know." Like right there, that's her tell, because she just doesn't know what to say. It's, I love her. I love how she goes from stealth, quiet, scary to like bumbling. I'm an idiot.
Shout out to the great Greg Nicotero for the special makeup effects in this movie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was that was Oscar nominated too, right? Like
I think so.
Yeah.
I think for this.
I think a lot of stuff should have gotten nominated for this movie.
Well,
this movie
and
really got
as we
passed
should
up.
mention is about Oscars. Ennio Morricone won his only Oscar for the score for this movie.
For recycling 95% of his music. But it was so well placed, though. It didn't matter.
Hey, dude, in the business we call that remixing in the DJ business, dude.
No,
From the thing, no less.
Yeah.
If you go back to Marconi's music to where they kind of pulled this shit from, these opening shots of Rob Richardson, like, there's a lot of people are like, God, this movie could have been cut down by 10 minutes if you just cut out the opening credits. But why? It's so beautiful to look at.
That's one of my
I could
favorite
stare
parts
at that shit all day, And when you put that Marconi music in, that eerie shit that he did, just like taking 2 minutes to pull out of like a cross, like that's snowy. I mean, we've all, you guys, you know what I'm talking about.
The slow motion horse, where you're right on the horse's head.
Yeah, and you see that storm catching him. Oh,
it's such a great shot.
Yeah.
Netflix even had the audacity to have that little text box jump up in the corner saying, "Would you like to, skip the credit?" I'm like, "No, I don't want to skip the."
Did it really? I don't remember that.
Dude, here's the coolest thing. I'm just going to take a little sidetrack just because Kat brought this up. I watch on Paramount Plus. There's a show called Evil. It actually started on the broadcast network. They pulled it into the streamer. So when that little box, when they roll the credits, which is now kind of like 10 minutes into the show, they roll the opening credits. The little thing pops up, but then underneath the actual show put in, if you skip the credits, you will be haunted.
Oh, nice.
And I'm like, oh, that's cool. So they offset that. Like, dude, no, watch the credits. Pretty cool.
Well, and after having revisited the movie and complaining about the length of it, I've never really had much of a complaint on the length of Quentin Tarantino movies. I thought it was really, really well paced, and also it did give you a sense of that sort of homesteader, Wild West shit takes a long time to do. When you set up a line that is, a mile long or half a mile long in the middle of a blizzard, then it's going to suck. Getting from place to place. That's why I really appreciated the opening carriage ride, just because that is a situation where it's like, no, we're not driving. This is going to take a while.
Well, the ambition of this movie is what makes it so special as a Tarantino movie, because you have these different elements where you have like the stagecoach thing, and then you have this stage that basically theater stage blocking of the rest of the movie. But you can even call the carriage, like the stagecoach, a blocking too, because there's things like that in stage plays as well, where there's just two people kind of going back and forth. I think it showcases Rob Richardson, and I think Fred Raskins. Okay, I don't talk about Fred Raskins that much. He's the editor that took over after Sally Menke. He's fine. I think the worst thing about Django is the editing, so I do blame him for that. But he did Fast Five. He did Guardians of the Galaxy. It's kind of weird that he's one of those guys, but he's fine. This is his best movie. This, and then obviously he did Once Upon a Time, but I think this one works better because there's so many things about this movie that could have fell apart. Yeah. So many things. It's so ambitious, and it's trying to constantly pop by just throwing dialogue at you, but throwing situational things at you and bringing up all these things from the past and like setting up where we're going and what we're doing. And like, I just think the editing, the cinematography, and obviously Tarantino and the acting, I think it all just came together, which is why it's so special. Where God, it could have been bad, and it could have been worse than something like Django, which I don't find anything bad about Django except for its length. I think it's fine. I think storytelling's fine. It's paced really bad in my opinion.
Yeah, this is my favorite edited Tarantino movie because even though this version is over, nearly 3.5 hours, I didn't once think about that. I was engaged the entire time.
Yeah.
I didn't get bored. I didn't think any of the dialogue scenes went on for too long. I didn't second guess too much though. I mean, other than the aforementioned logic of why the gunmen are waiting so long to try and do something, I didn't second guess anything else of the logic. I was just like his other movies. There's like a lot of select scenes that I like, but I feel they drag a lot. But this, I just was hooked the whole way, start to finish. I love the pacing of this movie.
Yeah, me too.
Though admittedly on the Netflix cut, it's a bit abrupt when you get to the end of the episode that it says written. It doesn't like you didn't use cuts which feel like an end. It's just it's so sharp and abrupt. I'm like, wait, what happened? And then it says directed by Quentin Tarantino. I'm like, okay, that's a little weird.
As an editor, and I'm sure Steve could see this too, like you run into that problem when you don't have an easy out, so you just abruptly but you can find, if you're like doing a comedy or something, you can, or even a drama, you can find a quick cut and make it dramatic or sad or whatever. But yeah, I think this one just said fuck it, and it's like, let's just move on to the next one. But this was like a mid-range budget movie for him too. The way they shot, I don't know if you guys know, but apparently everyone was really freezing on set. Like all the breath coming out of their mouths, that was not bullshit. Like
they shot it in December in Colorado.
Yeah, they were freezing.
On an actual ranch.
I know, and maybe that saved money, but like the fact that this was a $44 million budget, where you have, I think Inglourious was his most expensive at like $70 million or something. I still don't know how Kill Bill only cost him $30. That's incredible. But yeah, this one, it shows its budget, even though it's just confined to one space because it's so goddamn detailed, and obviously the location and all that shit.
I just think it absolutely represented that sort of the time in which it was, and it was incredibly paced. Now I didn't care for it.
Now we're getting to this.
I did not. I thought that it was a movie that I watched, and I appreciate the technical aspects of it, the performance, all of the pieces are there for me, but it just didn't come together. There was no centerpiece. There was none of that. It was more procedural than it was shocking or anything like that. Even the double crosses.
You don't think the big black dingus is the centerpiece?
The big black dingus I thought was a little gratuitous, actually, just to mountain.
Big centerpiece? No, I'm kidding.
There is something. Well, yeah. There too many jokes. So, but just that whole thing with him standing on the mountaintop, maniacally laughing as he's being blown. I'm just like, okay. We're just showing how bad this person is now too, and the revenge on it. And it's an interesting thing because I never considered that it is the title of the movie. I knew that I wasn't going to go into this and then be like, you know what, that guy, I want to be like Tim Roth.
The fact that there's half likable characters
Yeah.
in this movie.
Charming doesn't mean good, which is good. It's fine. I don't know. There was just something. It stopped short for me, and maybe this is also just based on the order that we've been watching these movies. And last week we did, or we did an episode. Not last week. If you're watching this on the replay, if you're here now, thank you and welcome to the chat. But we did Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and that is my favorite Tarantino movie, with the soundtrack and the staples of Tarantino and the cathartic release of violence at the end, where the bad guys pay and the good guys win. And I love that movie so much. And this one, I was like, this is a little too dour. But then again, maybe that's why Once Upon a Time is 9th and this one is 8th, as has been stated.
It's interesting that you and I flip flop with these two movies. We see them kind of the same, only in reverse.
Yeah, that's right. I remember doing. Oh wait, no, I did Jackie Brown with you, but listening to you doing Once Upon a Time, I watched it. You didn't like it as much. I mean, we all love Tarantino movies, but you didn't like it as much. Yeah.
I did like this one, I like the fact that I think both you and Kat brought up that it feels like a stage play. In fact, when they're inside, the lighting of the scenes feel like a stage play.
Yeah, it's not just feels like it; it's blocked like a stage play, like purposely blocked. I used to be. I was a stage manager in high school for for plays, and when you would have multiple actors on set at the same time on the stage, some people had to sit completely still, completely quiet, don't sneeze, don't sneeze, don't sneeze, because the lights would shift over to another part of the stage. And this movie does that. I love when it goes from the bar, it shifts over to Bob like serving drinks to, what's his name? Oswaldo Mowbray. It goes from to Oswaldo Mowbray like pouring beers and shots for Daisy and John Rue. But then it kind of just like slowly, subtly shifts over to another area, and it's almost like the rest of the haberdashery goes dark. It doesn't, but it feels like it does, you know? And that's play completely.
Oh, and it's brilliant. Again, it's nothing. There's nothing technical about this. It's just something about my interpretation of it. I don't have anything vehement about it. Like, I didn't like this. It just, it never kicked.
Scotty?
Well, it was kind of thematically, it's Tarantino's version of a stage play. Like Ben said, it's like, oh, let's do a stage play version. The classic, a bunch of people who have reasons to hate each other, ticking time bomb, but in one room for the most of it and just see what happens. Like, because he says he still wants to turn it into a stage play, or at least he said that years ago. I don't know if he still will, but that's kind of it's like that like sort of like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is his love letter to old Hollywood, and Django Unchained is his, alternate history slave fantasy, like Inglourious Basterds, alternate history slave. So whereas this is, it's a stage play, and as the title says, it's like this is unapologetic. The only sense of any type of kinship you get in the movie, genuine kinship, is between the thieves or the gang, Jody and his sister and Daisy, and then like you said, Joe Gage. You can see that's very much there. And at the end, they kind of have this quasi, I don't know if you call it meeting of the minds or so, between Mannix and Warren, or they kind of forget the fact that they should hate each other as much as they were sniping at each other in the carriage in the beginning of the movie. And they're like, you know what? We don't care that we don't like each other and that we're both probably going to die, but like, let's kill this bitch. It's like, we're going to do it the way John Ruth wanted to do it, even though they have really no reason to care about honoring John Ruth's beliefs. They're going to do it anyway.
Well, and then I guess that brings us to the Lincoln letter, which is an interesting sort of MacGuffin plot device, just the way that Warren ingratiates himself as a black man in a white world, and it disarms people claiming to have personal correspondence with Abraham Lincoln. And I think that Warren felt bad for Ruth, because Ruth was really touched by it. It was the second time he saw the letter.
Why?
He gets choked up by the old Mary Todd. And I really appreciated that. And then when John Ruth is like, I just call it a dirty trick. And it's kind of, I wouldn't out of the Hateful Eight, I would say that probably John Ruth is the one who's the most, I don't know, sympathetic.
I would agree, aside from him beating the shit out of a woman on screen.
Right.
But this was 2015 and not 2017, so it wasn't quite as bad at that point yet. And
I still find Warren a bit more sympathetic because you listen to what his backstory is.
Oh no, I was agreeing with Scotty. I think he is. I mean, they have him beating her up to kind of showcase the kind of world that we live in. Bounty hunters with people. I agree. I think he's definitely the most sympathetic character. He has the most empathy for people. Like he has a couple of bullying scenes, but that's because I almost think the only thing about this script that could have been better for me is if there was no people under the stairs, there was no people under the floor, there was no plot ahead of time, and it was just 8 horrible people that find out this chick is worth a lot of money, and they all end up killing each other to try to get her and get the reward. Right. That would have been a little bit more Reservoir Dogs-ish instead of, because you don't really, when you find out like that there's this subplot, it kind of just gives away everything that you've been hoping to find out for yourself the entire movie. But then it's like, oh no, don't worry about it. You don't need to figure it out. We're just going to tell you, you know? I would have liked it if it was just like a bunch of people that don't trust each other and they end up knocking each other off to try to get Daisy Domergue.
I do agree with you and Scotty, though, that Ruth is slightly less shitty than everybody else.
A little bit less.
That's what I'm agreeing with. I think Warren is more sympathetic.
You think so?
Yeah, you know what? I think maybe Warren is a little better.
Warren, I mean, because like you said, when Warren goes in there, he's checking everybody, and that's kind of why he ends up kind of initiating the bloodbath at the end, because he figures out what's actually going on.
Smartest, yes.
Right. Whereas John Ruth is admittedly driving the action for the majority of the movie because he doesn't get off until like 2 hours 15 minutes into the extended cut, but the way he's constantly beating her up, he's being a dick to everybody they come across, being really paranoid, and I didn't understand. If he really is interested in safeguarding his investment, why is he telling everybody how much money she's worth and who she is?
You should have never said who she was in the first place.
Yeah, nobody knew it. Nobody cared. And it's like, and when he goes around collecting everybody's guns, it's like, okay, I laughed out loud when he told Joe Gage, it's like, don't worry, you give me a gun, I will protect you. And I just laughed.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I love that. That's when I talk about technical sound design of a scene. That scene with because Michael Madsen is such a great up close camera actor. Like if you get up in his grill, he gives you his best, and like just that sound, even though a knife wouldn't make that sound when it comes off skin, shing, it wouldn't do that, but it doesn't matter. It's such an intimate scene where he pulls the bandana and he wraps it around his neck, and he's breathing real heavy. Oh, I love that.
That sound design makes it
more
tangible and visceral.
Yeah, and then I thought that therefore to me Warren was a bit more sympathetic because he has because he's smart.
I'm with Kat now.
That's why he's paying attention to who he's going to kill. And in hindsight, the reason he insists on hanging Daisy is because he blames her for him getting his dick shot off and dying in the bed. And it's like, okay, this was your plan. You may not have known all the specifics, but this is your deal. I'm going to get you for this. And he's like, if it's wanted dead or alive, I'm going to kill him because they're just going to get hanged anyway, so who cares? Yeah. Whereas John Ruth just shit out of her face.
He wants to shoot him from afar because he doesn't take enjoyment out of it. He wants to shoot him and put him over the side of a horse and get paid like a commodity instead of like, oh, I just killed somebody. Plus, if it's true that like he was just bullshitting with Sanford Smithers and he wasn't really doing those awful things to his son, then he's not that bad of a guy. If that stuff is true, he's pretty sadistic and gross.
Yeah, that's the thing. I guess that comes down to the reading of the film. I just didn't think he actually did it. I thought it was, like I said, I thought it was just he was smart enough to see that this guy isn't with the others. They're not going to give a shit if I kill him. And given the guy's reputation, because he does egg him on, not just as part of a ruse, but you could tell he means it. Like he's really upset when he says, you caught all of those guys and not a single one of them were in prison. He's like, well, we didn't have enough food to go around, giving these sheepish excuses. And it's like, no, you really wanted to kill him. And I can't really blame you for wanting to do that. Even though I also agreed with Stanford's retort that he's like, well, it's war, people die. It's like,
you didn't have the time or the food.
Which is also kind of true in a way, because that's also one of the biggest obstacles the Confederacy faced, that they didn't have food, and that's also
Nobody
why.
did. Yeah,
Right, and
nobody in
that's
the
why
Civil
Anderson.
War. Like, what are you supposed to do with prisoners? Yeah, you don't kill them, but you can't feed them.
Right, and that's why Andersonville was as bad as it was. It's not so much that the guards are trying to be sadistic. It's that the South in particular was starving a lot worse off than the North was in terms of their resources. So it's like, yeah, you can see it both ways, but yeah, I could see why he just wanted to kill that guy, which is why I firmly plant my flag in the camp that says that story was all about the son, and making him do that was all bullshit.
I think you're right. I think you're right. Yeah,
It was,
I felt that way the very first time I saw the movie too. So, and to your point, besides Daisy, those two, meaning Ruth and Warren, are the very first people we see in the film, and they do turn out to be the two most sympathetic, or two less shitty people out of the number, which is far more than 8.
We get 45 minutes of screen time with them before you really meet anybody else.
Right.
So it's just a matter of what do you want to do with them, I mean, to be honest, if we're talking about the most sympathetic character, it's by far OB.
Oh, of course.
OB just gets shit on constantly.
Yeah, I don't think he's even a member of the 8, is he?
No, he's not. He's just
he's not. Yeah, he's not. So.
But
well, and I like.
You guys notice when they? Oh, sorry, Scott. Go ahead.
Well, and don't lose that thought. But I just noticed that there was the part where OB goes out to do the line, comes back in, kicks in the door because Bob had shot the latch off.
That door's a whore.
But he comes in and he's like, "God damn you! I could have died. I'm not going back out there again." And then they flash back to the beginning of the chapter. Daisy's got a secret. And they're talking about who's going to get rid of the body for Smithers. And it's like, and they drew lots to find out who's going to go. OB lost.
Yeah, it's like OB didn't say, "Hey, I already did it once, I'm not doing it again." And for that matter, I'm surprised he went so far as to actually dump the gun down to the outhouse. I thought, like, it's like John Ruth isn't going to follow you out into that blizzard. Just toss it out the door and just stand against
the door. He has no stake in anything. So he's just like, sure, whatever. I'll just dump it. I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were saying, Ben.
One thing about OB, and it goes with so much in this movie, but specifically the dinner scene with the stew, which is my favorite scene in the entire movie. Not monologue or action scene, but the way it's shot. It's a total marvel of like a cinematographer and a director just sitting behind the camera knowing exactly what they both want to do, and all the actors knowing what they want to do. And it's a complete realized scene, not a scene set for a movie. Everything about it is really happening. Like when you see everyone kind of sit down, they start to have their food. People are picking different spoons. They're putting different amounts of stew in their bowls. Then when they sit down and the focus goes on the people talking, I'm more interested in what's going on in the background. That's when you see OB start pouring a bowl of stew for Joe Gage because they were late to the game because OB was warming up by the fire because he was so cold. So he shows up later and they start making each other stew while the big talk is going on about like, you have Walton Goggins taunting Samuel L. Jackson. He's like, tell me, Black Major, all that stuff. But if you look around what's going on in both sides, it's like a full circle, like both sides. There's all this stuff going on where it's just like nothing is missed. There's no character just in silhouette standing there. They're all doing something to progress themselves. Like that's the stuff about this movie that just, it makes my mind go crazy. Cause I'm like, when people talk about attention to detail directors, like he's got to be the biggest stickler on that. He's got to be the most detailed director maybe ever, in my opinion, because he doesn't let anything go in the background. Like not every movie he does has stuff going on in the background, but this movie specifically, it's a rotating panoramic of just shit happening in this haberdashery while you're supposed to be focused on conversations, like, I don't know. Sorry, I took a while with that, but I was trying to get the point across. That's what's so great about this movie.
Like a play, in long takes. That's what it feels like to me. That he shot it like a play. Like these guys, you set these wonderful actors in this great set and just say action and let them go and just shoot these super long scenes and I don't know because I never saw any. I never watched any of the behind the scenes, but that's what it feels like, you know. And to your point, you know, that everybody's got a thing to do all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, the story's never not moving for
Right.
anybody in the scene, you know. I love
Well,
it.
and while going through some of the behind the scenes stuff, like whenever I'm going into watching the movie and then sort of going digesting, I was looking for interviews and on YouTube with Tarantino, and one of them that came up wasn't for the Hateful Eight, it was for Jackie Brown, and he was talking about, and he's doing a roundtable with a bunch of critics, and the critics say it's good, it's just too long, it's too long, and Quentin Tarantino says, he's like, nobody makes paced movies like this anymore. I want you to be able to hang out with these characters so that you care about the actions that take place nearing like the third act or nearing the last half of the movie. But I want you to spend time with these guys or girl, like this crew for an hour. And this is for Jackie Brown, but I think it applies here as well. Is so that you get to know what's going on with these people before all hell breaks loose.
Yeah,
And
this one gives you that alternative history lesson that's not true, kind of true, character development. Where are we going? What are we doing? Beautiful scenery. The reason this one is long is because why cut? You know, a lot of times they say like directors go into the cutting room because they're like, fuck you, you're not cutting that. And the editor's like, dude, we have to cut this. It's like Tarantino, nobody's going to tell him what to do at this point, and they probably haven't for 20 years. But nothing to me needed. I guess if you were to press me and say what could be shortened, maybe where OB and Walton Goggins are hammering the stakes into the ground, which seems to go on for a little bit. It's like, we could just do one and then cut. But you know,
the Western genre to me kind of lends itself to a slower, maybe not slower, but a longer movie, right? And a paced movie like that.
Well, that's what all those. I mean, who set the standard for that? Like High Noon, super slow, just editing based, and then who's the guy that did? Who's the Sergio Leone? I mean, those are slow as fuck. So yeah, you're right, Steve.
Yep.
Well, and there are moments where you're having the conversation around the dinner table, and Mannix is saying, "You have a letter from Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln, President Abraham Lincoln. You have a letter from," and it just keeps reiterating it. I was expecting Warren to be like, "English, motherfucker, do you speak it?"
And this movie does such a good job that most modern movies don't do. They pay attention to the look of their characters. If you notice, Walton Goggins is laughing out loud with his mouth open, and he's missing a bunch of teeth. What modern movies set in past tense get criticized for is that all the indigenous people in Prey have California pearly white teeth.
Exactly.
And I love that Walton Goggins has like hardly any teeth in his mouth. Obviously, it's just covered up somehow. But he's doing that, and he's like, "You got a letter from Abraham Lincoln," and he just starts laughing, holding that spoon, and he's just like, "That's the first time you notice he has like hardly any teeth in his mouth." It's detailed.
Yeah, and even what's her name also has Daisy's. Her teeth are just horrible as well. The two front ones are like cut in half almost. But then Warren has pearly whites.
Yeah.
It is true. But and I thought that was a great makeup effect. Again, bringing up Greg Nicotero, not just for the carnage, but also for the aftermath of the carnage with those two front teeth knocked out or broken off. Like that was, and the slow de-evolution of Daisy going from sort of playing possum, waiting for the moment where she can, or at least be aware of the poisoning of the coffee, and she's gaining trust. And there is a moment with John Ruth and Daisy Domergue where John Ruth is actually not being so brutal to her, and is, wipes her face and unlocks her and says, "You can play the guitar. If we're going to be here, I can't treat you like a wild animal the entire time." And that ultimately blows
Those
up in his
touches where he goes up and cleans off her face. And I mean, there's just so many great little touches.
Oh, and the character
Uncuffed her. He's like, "Don't think I'm going soft on you. I'm not."
I'm gonna blow it right through your goddamn throat. I love it, man. Yeah.
Oh, and it's so good. And then, but that sort of explosive, and that's when I really felt for OB the worst is when John Ruth first throws up the blood, and then OB is like, "Uh-oh."
You guys
And then
have all
he's
seen Team America World Police, right?
yeah.
The OB puke scene is as violent as the puke scene in Team America, where he's like, "Bleh!" when his whole head is shifting around and he's on all fours. Like, for some reason, it seems exactly like that. Team
Well,
America puke
and then
scene.
going back to Dusk Till Dawn, when Obi is down on all fours, I half expected him to turn into a giant rat vampire monster.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, all right, I guess this is the movie we're watching. But no, it doesn't happen. Obviously, they just die horrible, poisoned deaths. But it was that thing, and then with John Ruth just vomiting blood all over Daisy, and then she gets the best of him. It is gross, and that could qualify as the centerpiece. There are a bunch of scenes that do highlight classic Tarantino, for lack of a better term, exploitation and violence.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's almost like when you get, you have a favorite cereal, but instead of getting one big box of your favorite cereal, you get the Kellogg's mixer pack with 6 different
Remember the little
cereals.
boxes? Yeah.
And it's like, well, that was good, but it wasn't enough.
Well, it's like that scene also after John Ruth lets her play the guitar, and after she sings her song, he comes up there and he's kind of silent about this, and then he just randomly and violently just grabs the guitar out of her hand and just smashes it to pieces.
Yeah.
And she's like, "What the fuck?" Because it's like,
because it was really happening.
right.
That was a real. Yeah, I love Jennifer Lee's face where she's like, "Whoa," because it was really, yeah.
Yeah, but it's also the fact that he as a character decides to do that, because it's almost like he's reminding her that I'm not that soft.
Well, because she was taunting him in her song.
Right.
Yeah. She's like, "I'm gonna go to Mexico when John Rue's dead," or whatever, because she knew he drank the coffee. And
Yeah.
I love the whole who drank the coffee, who poisoned the coffee. Like, it was such a thing. It's like it's so comic booky when you see the hand. You're like, what is that like liquid they're pouring in there? It's like something out of a Harry Potter movie or something.
It's like the fact that the person who poisoned the coffee is all the way at the back there and nobody's watching them. They should whip out their gun and just get the people right then and there and be done with it,
But it made sense when you find out who it was, because he was the one that was the quietest, who didn't say much, that kind of stayed in the background. The first time you see him, he's behind those chains, Joe Gage. He's kind of just like, "I'm writing my life story," and he's making up all this horse shit, and like, so he can get his little moment in there.
No, and it was absolutely great, and it was sort of everybody sets up their own alibi for not being part of the gang or not in on it. Like, you have Eduardo being the hangman and bullshitting with the best of them. Joe Gage going home to have Christmas with his mother.
Oh, to me, Oswaldo Mowbray was the most convincing person. To me, the Tim Roth character, I would have never believed that he was part of the conspiracy or the gang or whatever, because he did his homework. He knew who all the people were. He knew all the names that Chris Maddox was saying, and he was just so convincing, And then later you see him and his accent changes to that kind of street Euro.
Oh yeah, it goes more guttural as opposed to the English gentleman.
Yeah.
But that and just immediately ingratiating to John Ruth, who is known as the Hangman, so might as well be the Hangman. And then being able to dovetail that off of Mannix with being the new sheriff, and so it was definitely. And anytime I see Tim Roth, I have a soft spot for him, even though he's rarely the good guy. So
he's still great though.
I have that soft spot for Damien Bashir. I love that dude. I think he's a great actor.
He's a great actor too. Yeah,
he was in this great FX show. I think it only was 2 seasons long. It was called The Bridge.
Yeah, I saw The Bridge. He was awesome in The Bridge.
So good.
He was also in Weeds. If you ever saw Weeds with Mary Louise Parker, he's very good in that too.
He's been in a bunch of stuff.
And Brie Larson.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
So what do we think about the destruction of the guitar?
Well, when it comes to the guitar, apparently and I just read this in as a tidbit of trivia, is that there was a stunt guitar that was going to be smashed instead.
Yep.
Kurt Russell didn't know. No one called cut. And so the reaction that you see on screen is Jennifer Jason Leigh being like, no.
Well, that's
And
that's what
and
She's
then
surprised. She goes, whoa.
yeah. And the thing is from her account, or at least the account that I read attributed to her, was there was a smile on Quentin Tarantino's face as that happened, simply because it did bring more authenticity to the performance. So he was fine with it.
That'd be just the kind of shit that Tarantino would set up.
Because here's the thing, because the crew knew it was real too. Why would the crew and one of the actresses or one of the actors all know that that was a real one and Kurt Russell wouldn't?
I
That
think
didn't
the
make
whole
sense to me.
thing was staged by QT to get a genuine expression out of Jennifer Jason.
Exactly, which is a dick move on his part.
Yeah.
To just, and it's like, yeah, you get in a sense, it's kind of insulting to her because it's like, oh, I don't think you're good enough of an actress to give a genuine give a good shocked reaction to him smashing the guitar, and then as a result, the museum won't loan out any of their stuff as props anymore. And Kurt Russell felt horrible about it, and it's like, is it really? I mean,
Necessary?
yeah, it was
You know
from
what,
an
dude? He can donate a new one and just sign Jack Burton to it, and it'll be worth more than that guitar was.
No.
Well, and not only that, but I think that getting that sort of, it's not a matter of Jennifer Jason Leigh not being able to deliver a solid performance, but more of, there's a difference between acting surprised and being surprised, and for completely different reasons. And to evoke that, let's not forget, like, Stanley Kubrick drove Shelley Duvall insane on The Shining. So one
Pull
guitar,
her hair out and start
She
smoking.
was already mentally off. It just
But the amount of hair she pulled out and the amount of cigarettes she smoked during that movie, that was because of.
So I would.
We're not talking about Stanley Kubrick. We know a lot of bad things.
Drove her insane. I would say that Kubrick exploited some insanity on her part.
Yeah, maybe.
and that's all I'm saying is, like, and I understand, like, 100-year-old guitar, it was irreparable. There we go. And
Replaceable.
I feel badly for the history of the region. Obviously, it was a treasure. It was in a museum, and I completely understand how that museum is now walled off all of their props or all of their items not to be used in production anymore. And it did rob history of that piece of art, but it did contribute to another one. So the circle of life, I don't know.
Yeah.
Sounds like an excuse to me, but we'll go with it.
But I would say that was probably the moment in the in that I would qualify that as being the centerpiece of the whole thing, and it was a fleeting moment because I knew, and so it doesn't add to the story. It's just I knew the story of the guitar, and I was like, oh, it's coming now. Oh, it's coming, and when it happens, I'm just like, damn.
That'd be funny. It's like you have a text caption at the start of the movie saying, at some point in this film, an antique guitar will be destroyed.
Yeah.
So it just adds the extra layer of tension when she picks it up.
There's really
Well,
cool.
it's funny too because the genuine expression that they got off of her, from her going, "Holy fuck, this is crazy that you're really doing that," because of her dialogue read beforehand, it looks like she's still just taunting him. So like the genuine reaction that they got didn't showcase her going, "Oh my god, he's really doing this," because of what she was already doing in context. When she goes, whoa, it's almost like she's still just playing with him as far as the movie goes. And
Right.
I love that. Like, maybe Tarantino didn't even know what the reaction was going to be. But he's like, whatever it is, that's what we're going to use.
Capture it. Yeah.
They actually used the third take. It was all for naught.
Another really cool thing I like about this movie, when they're in the haberdashery, and it's just a very minor little thing, it's just every time I see it, it's awesome, is that while the scenes are going on, snow is actually coming through the slits in the front door and gathering right on the stoop there on the entryway.
Yeah.
there's just little touches like that. I think that goes to what Ben was talking about with everybody kind of doing something all the time. There's, these little details are just that it just makes the movie really beautiful to watch.
And
you
it's
can even watch these
snowing
where
in the
people
back
are.
next to
Sorry, Kat.
next to Joe. The snow's consistently falling like through the back there, through like a big open slat in the window. It's pretty cool.
There's times in the movie where people just go up and randomly check the door to make sure the nails are still in there, and
Right.
they're out of focus and they're in the background, but you can tell who it is based on height and cowboy hat and all that shit. But it's just like there's so much. There's never not a rotating door of like the characters doing what they would be doing. Like even like the geography. Like if you in the hands of another director, Minnie's haberdashery might be like, what the fuck is the layout of this place?
Right.
But because this is set up so much like a stage play, when you finally see like Joe Gage like sitting on a bed, you're like, where the fuck is that bed?
Right.
And they're like, oh wow, the bed's between the kitchen and where they have like the jelly beans and the coffee. And you're like, well, that's weird. It's just a place to like lay down and rest your feet, I guess, or whatever. But that plays such a huge that spot plays. It's the ending, like last 15, 20 minutes of the movie is right there. So because they set it up right there and they give you that big wide shot of where it is, at the end you're like, okay, now I know where it is. And it I don't know, for some reason, like with a stage play, the placement of everyone in the story at certain points of the story are so important to it because it's all so confined. If they had branched out to the outside and it becomes a gun battle in the dark, it wouldn't have mattered as much. But this movie had no interest in doing like action scenes. For how much guns go off, there's no action scenes in this movie.
Just executions.
Yeah. Just guns going off. Yeah,
It's just another.
and lots of heads exploding. I think Damien Brashear's head exploded like a champion.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that was
Well, acting.
yeah.
That was
But
so great. Just
With
hop.
the negotiation to try and make it, so why don't you just you can take him and he's worth $10,000, and it's like, well, he's not worth anything without a head.
Yeah.
That's
He's
funny.
like he ain't worth a peso. Bob the
I just thought it was
Mexican
kinda
ain't worth
funny
a
that
peso.
time to nail the door shut when they knew it's like somebody's going to be coming in another like 5 minutes. Why don't you just lean up against the door until they show up instead of going to the trouble of trying to nail the door shut, and you're going to do this whole thing again in another few minutes.
Well, the door was the biggest giveaway for Marcus Warren. The door
Right.
was all he needed to know. The second, because he's the only one that had been there like 20 times or however many times. So he's like, okay, there's gunshots in the door. I see this right away. This place is not safe. Then, like I said, the jelly bean, all just the placement, the separation.
The fact that one of the animal skins was taken off the wall to hide the blood on the chair.
Yeah, the chair. Yeah, he's like, nobody sits in that chair. Nobody sits in that chair but Sweet Day. He knew all that, but he didn't say it. You know, like, I just love it. I love it. I love this movie. It's so good.
Oh, and then
Scotty. Sorry you hate it so much, Scotty.
no, I don't hate. I hate it 8 times. But I liked the reveal. Like once you get to the dinner table and the Lincoln letter is bullshit, I liked that sort of character moment at the end when Mannix and Warren are basically bleeding out. There's no hope for them. They've killed Daisy. Spoilers. And
Crazy death scene, by the way, it's fucking crazy.
oh, it's insane. Like
I just thought that was so great that's going to be.
I love how the bed
They're
post
going to expedite their deaths by expounding what little energy they have left to hang her the old-fashioned way.
and then Mannix says, "Can I see that letter?" And he reads it out loud for the audience and himself, because I don't think that he can actually read internally. He did seem like a bit of a dullard. And so he reads it, and he comments on the Mary Todd. It's like, that's a nice touch. And Warren's like, yeah, I thought so too. And then he just crumples it up, and then we cut to Roy Orbison, of all things.
Oh, that song is just so perfect to end the movie. But I think that scene is like I think they're both dying, right? Like they're both bleeding out. They're bleeding out hardcore. It's not like they're gonna make it to Red Rock at this.
Well, that's
point.
why he says, to Daisy is my first and last official act as sheriff.
Yeah.
I hereby sentence you to hang by the neck until you are dead.
And you kind of, by the end of the movie, at least me, wanted Chris Maddox to make it.
I kind of did too. I thought
Because
that,
his character changed. He had such an arc by the end of the movie.
he did, and on the one hand, yeah, he's still a bit of a dope. Like when Warren is laying out all of his whole Sherlock Holmes moment, and then when he gets his belief that Joe Gage is guilty simply because he's ugly, and when he gets that verified, he's like, I knew it, I knew it. And that was great, but it's
well,
like,
that scene makes so much more sense when you watch the miniseries because there's all this added. Have you guys seen that one?
I watched that one today. That's the one I
there's
watched.
Tons of extra footage between Chris Maddox and Joe Gage and how they meet each other and the way they don't like each other right off the bat. Because if you just watch the theatrical version, Chris Maddox goes, I think the ugly one did it, Joe Gage. And you're like, why does he care about Joe Gage? Because they cut out all that subtext of why they don't like each other. But if you watch the extended or the miniseries, they have this rift throughout the whole movie. So it makes way more sense. And it doesn't ruin it if you don't see those scenes. But it definitely pays off when you do see the extended stuff because you're like, oh, okay, I get it now. Like they don't like each other from the get-go. They just have they just size each other up wrong and they're just not, they just have a bad chemistry. So when he's just like, the ugly guy did it, and he's like, I fucking knew it. That scene makes so much more sense when you see those other scenes. But
sorry, Kat.
And how he's not really interested in hearing or accepting any type of deal from Daisy. He just wants to hear her spin a bullshit yarn. So that way,
just lets her talk and talk and talk too, which is great. Yeah,
let's throw it back in her face just so because for a minute Warren's getting worried that he's actually going to take the deal, and of course by now he's learned to not be that dumb.
But he's so dumb. He waited so long that he has no blood left. So then he passes out, and you get the "Wake up, white boy!"
Are you nailed to that floor?
Yeah, wake the fuck. Yeah. But that payoff though, when Daisy goes for that gun and her body just gets blasted across the room, and you see that Maddox had woken up. It's not the kind of movie where the crowd's gonna cheer like Endgame, like yeah, like no one was doing that, but people were like, oh fuck, whoa. Because that movie was just making people uncomfortable from the first second until hour.
I don't know. I felt like a cheer when he did that.
No, I did too. But I just mean like, it was just coming off of Django, which I guess people thought was a crowd pleaser, even though I just thought it was kind of boring. It was kind of a crowd pleaser. It was still to this day his highest grossing movie, which shocks me to my core. I can't believe it. But I think people were expecting his other Western to be more like that. And then with the added, hey, this might be like Reservoir Dogs, and then it just being something. I always look at, sorry, let me just tangent this real quick. I always look at the Hateful Eight as if a group of wanderers like are going to, the haberdashery is like kind of like purgatory or hell. Because as soon as you get there, like everything goes out the window. Like everything that you thought you were going to do or everything you're trying to protect or everything that you think you hold valuable now is just in this like disarray, just like crazy stew of, well, and there's stew in this movie too. So it kind of makes sense. But like the people that end up, well, I guess no one really makes it out, but the people that end up changing in this movie are the people that change some of their kind of horrific values or some of their sensibilities or whatever. Maybe they don't make it out. We never know. My guess is they don't. They die. But they're changed people. And
dude, that's Ben. That's very interesting to kind of equate the haberdashery with a way station or purgatory, right?
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Well, because your goddess is dead when you get there. Like Minnie was what everyone loved about the haberdashery. So when you get there and you walk in, something's off because your like goddess is dead. So like there's no order anymore. So it's just like a free for all of chaos.
Yeah, the way.
Well,
he goes to hell.
Well, continue the tangent a little bit. I liked during Dusk Till Dawn. I remember. I don't know if it was in the audio commentary or if it was in a behind the scenes special feature, but Tarantino talks about the movie The Getaway, the original with Steve McQueen, and then it was ultimately remade with Alec Baldwin. And it's all about doing the crime, and they're on their way to El Rey. And in Dusk Till Dawn, they're on their way to El Rey.
Yeah.
Because in the novel of The Getaway, that's where they're going, but it's supposed to be a representation of hell. They've done their thing, they're getting away, but they're going to exist forever in hell. And with this, I think it's somewhat similar, is that there is somewhere we're going. We are going to Red Rock. We're all going to Red Rock. We all have to get to Red Rock, and we never get to Red Rock.
Right.
And it's I like that, not to, I say it too often, but not to subvert the expectations. But when you set a goal at the beginning of the movie and then you never achieve that goal, it's interesting.
It's biblical.
It's biblical.
Yeah.
So just another thought, and that you bring it up now. That is, it's your way station, and you're going to be in purgatory. You're never actually going to get to your final reward, whatever that may be.
Like metaphorically, is Red Rock real, or is like if it's a story of heaven and hell and gods? It's like, well, where is? I'm going way too much into this shit. Never mind.
Oh no, that's why we're here, dude.
No, I mean, but there's a lot. There's a lot to that as far as like where the characters end up, because everyone.
And yet the task is still accomplished, just not in the place where they said it would be.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, and no one gets rewarded for their tasks, but they complete their tasks.
And the happiest people are in this movie is eating that delicious stew. And tell me, guys, doesn't that stew look amazing? It's so thick.
I'm actually, it's on the screen right now. It looks great.
It's so thick and delicious, and like they have their own little wooden spoons. It just looks amazing.
Minnie makes great stew.
And the sound effect of the when it plops into everyone's bowl, it's so good. I just love all that stuff.
Oh, just coffee and stew, the life of a cowboy.
Right.
Oh, I mean, mine and Devin's favorite line in the movie is when John Rue takes a sip of coffee and spits it out. He's like, Jesus Christ, that's awful. He's like, well, what did that guy do? Soak his old socks in a pot? That's the best line in the movie.
And again, that's just something that like, is that because the coffee's burnt from the morning? Because that was the last time anybody made any coffee?
It was made when all the other people died. It's been sitting on there for hours and hours.
Exactly. And so that's like that. I do appreciate the construction or the mechanics of the script. I enjoy the characterization. I enjoy the cinematography. I don't really have much to say about the editing. The sound design is brilliant. Again, and you not only do you see the snow falling outside, but you hear the wind. And you know when things are bad when the door opens, because that's when blizzard blows in. But everything about it is really, it's proficient. I don't want to say it's satisfying, because I wasn't satisfied. Now it's still going to be top side of 5, but
Piano.
playing Silent Night when Bob plays Silent Night.
First second to tell you it was Christmas time. Yeah. Well, I guess Joe Gage had already said he was visiting his mom for Christmas, but yeah, it's technically a Christmas movie, just like Die Hard.
Right.
There we go. So just gather around the family this coming December 20th and watch The Hateful Eight and see if dinner is any better.
It was on your Christmas rotation.
Yeah,
I on mine. It's snow and fireplaces and
murder.
Yeah, murder. Why not? I already got the Ice Harvest on mine. I might as well have the Hateful Eight.
Might as well.
I like that movie.
It's great.
Does anyone have any further observations, thoughts?
I'll say one thing in my closing, and then I will shut up. The reason I love, I probably already said it, but the reason I love this movie so much is because Tarantino, he's such a wonderful filmmaker, because he doesn't care what anybody thinks. And I know that sounds very broad, but he really doesn't. He truly does not. And like, I don't think he thought this movie was going to be a runaway hit. I really don't. Like, coming off of Inglourious Basterds, which was a huge late summer 09 success, and then following that up with Django, and that becoming a huge success. This was kind of like, I like to call it the Wowie Zowie effect, because that was Pavement's third album where they were on a roll with good albums, and then they just told people to fuck off with this weird third album. So I think Hateful Eight was kind of that one where he's like, okay, that's cool. I gave you, okay, we got it. Like, I got some Oscar noms, I got some blockbusters. Now I'm going back to, I've always wanted to do like a stage play movie, and that's not how he sounds, but I've always wanted to do
Mike
like
Tyson? Anyway.
No, but he went to something that really mattered to him, and the fact that the script got leaked and then he rewrote so much of it and then still put it out the way he did, and like the way it was advertised was very true to what it was. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's why I just admire it so much. Plus all the stuff I've already talked about, the details, the backgrounds, the sounds, and
This movie absolutely felt like one of his passion projects.
yeah,
More so than some of the movies that came before.
I think it's his biggest passion project maybe since like his first or second movie. You know, because it was the one where he's just like, I don't care if people want to see this or not. It's not going to be a financial success. I just want to make it. And it wasn't a financial success, you know. So,
and also, just going back to something that I like to touch upon, which is the Quentin Tarantino shared universe. If there is Red Apple Tobacco, it is part of the same universe. Every Tarantino film, and some that aren't Tarantino film, have it. He's usually involved. But if there is Red Apple Tobacco, then it all takes place in the same world, in my
Red
opinion.
Apple twice or three times in this movie. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They say it in Spanish, and then they say it afterwards as well. And
Yep.
it's like, oh, can you
Minnie
roll me a...
says it. She goes, I only serve Red Apple. And then I think Damien Brashear says, Red Apple Tobacco. Yeah.
It's, yeah, and it's, well, and no, but what is, it's, oh... I don't know how to say red apple in Spanish, but they do point it out and they say it in Spanish. But yeah, and so I like that, just continuing the long line of Quentin Tarantino movies sharing the same universe.
Cool.
Kat, did you have anything to summarize?
I co-sign what everybody said. I love this movie, and I like Ben said, it's his stage play. That's kind of, you know, what it started out as and what it ended up becoming. And that's like, yeah, Mannix may be the only character who has an actual character arc, but I didn't really mind that because in the spirit of a stage play, this is like, you know, it's only occurring like pretty much on one night or only several like hours. And like Ben said, it's almost as if they initially thought of the idea as, everybody's going to find out she's worth a lot of money. You're going to kill each other for it. Instead, it doesn't do that. And it certainly sets you up to think that, given that John Ruth is willing to tell everybody and their uncle how much the girl's worth. And you think that's going to happen, and then it doesn't, which is like deliberate. It's like, let's make John Ruth that stupid. Kind of like when he sees the chicken half plucked, and he's just at first being kind of a lazy jerk, saying, why didn't you finish doing this? Why? Oh, he's like, well, I was busy. I was outside. And he doesn't think twice about it, whereas you know, Warren immediately seizes upon that. He's like, yeah, no, if you actually worked here, you're not going to leave the chicken half plucked just lying there in front of the fireplace. So yeah, I really love
that's another scene that came from the extended cut too. Is like the chicken that she's plucking at the beginning becomes a part of the movie in the extended, but not in the theatrical cut. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, yeah. See, it's been a long time since I've watched the theatrical cut, and it makes me wish that they just edited the extended together and put it out on Blu-ray, or because there's really no point in breaking up the extended cut in multiple episodes. It's like, just let it be the 4 hour or 3.5 hour movie that it is. You know.
Yeah.
But, you know, c'est la vie.
Well, and
if anybody's interested, they're both on Netflix right now.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Netflix produced the miniseries one. Yeah, it's fucking great. If you have time to watch it, it's like 4.5 hours, but it's really cool. Yeah.
Great.
well, and And I do have to double check because we had sort of come to the conclusion that we were going to review the movie or the theatrical specifically. You guys deviated somewhat, and I didn't get the chicken scene. So, but whatever. The extended cut versus the theatrical cut, not a big deal. What I was really interested in was revisiting it in those blocks, just because of the level of pacing and being able to break it up into 4 sort of digestible portions. And when I revisit it, I'll probably end up revisiting that way.
Well, you know what's interesting is when I was talking about how, I know we're wrapping up, but real quick,
Sure.
I was talking about how Major Marcus Warren, like, he just surveils and knows what's going on. He doesn't know exactly what's going on, but he knows something's wrong. And throughout, he just kind of sees things. The chicken was something where if you watch the theatrical cut, the woman Gemma, they're like, oh, there's that Gemma. She's a wonderful Gemma from the lovely Zoe Bell. So last you see her, she's plucking chicken feathers, and then she dies. And there's a scene in the extended / mini series where Major Marcus Warren says like, "Hey, no, Minnie would have never left a chicken with like half of its feathers still stuck in the thing." So it was just another little clue that he had. It was like another. But they cut it out of the movie. Makes sense because you didn't miss it. You didn't know it was there. But when you watch the extended stuff, you're like, God damn, there's all this extra shit.
Well, and then there's other moments of tension that they build up that doesn't necessarily go anywhere. Like when Mannix keeps telling Samson about how much of a bounty used to be on Warren's head during the war. And he's like, that guy? And he's like, yeah, that guy. He's worth 5,000? Well, not anymore. But during the war, just kind of egging him on to do something. And yet that doesn't end up being what provokes the action. It ends up being the bullshit story about him killing the son, which I thought was, again, kind of interesting. So they're keying you up to think one thing's going to happen and then something else happens.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's a masterclass in misdirection. Like that is to be certain. Again, the technical aspects.
And I did think that originally watching it that John Ruth and Warren were going to be the last 2 alive at the end. So I was really surprised that Ruth was taken out when he was. I'm like, oh, okay. Because again, up to that point, he was mostly driving the events of the story. Yeah. So that was kind of because that's where the real shift happens, where it becomes more of Warren's story after that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then you don't know whose story it's going to be.
Right.
Points, yeah. Cool.
So I guess all we need now is bullets.
Bullets.
Kat, how many bullets would you like to give the Hateful Eight?
10 bullets.
Well, all right then.
What's her favorite? It's her favorite QT.
I'm gonna give it a 7. Steven?
This is rare, but I'm giving it 10 bullets.
Oh my stars! And Ben?
I'm giving it a 9. I just love it to death. It's not my favorite, but like I said, it's one of them.
Yeah, I agree with Scott that the movie doesn't have as much heart or touching moments as a lot of his other films do. As much carnage and foul stuff that's usually you find in Tarantino movies, there's still heart to it. And this one doesn't really have that. But I just find this one, of all of his movies, to just be wildly entertaining from start to finish for me and engaging and never bored by it, which is why I had to give it a 10.
Me too. Well said. 100% agree.
Yeah, it's a 10 for me. It's not my favorite Tarantino movie, like I said, but it's definitely a 10 for me due to the character development and the outrageously gorgeous cinematography. This movie is insane.
Yep.
And yeah.
And getting Marconi, where up until this point, Tarantino did not really use score.
Right.
Never really used score. He did a tiny, tiny bit in Inglourious, but it was, again, recycled score. This was the first one where it's like, wow, that's a fucking Hateful Eight score.
Yeah.
And I do love that, that he got his Oscar for this one, considering I thought Morricone's score for The Thing was probably the best score he ever did in terms of how much the music does for the movie.
Half of it's in this.
Yeah, and the fact that he put half of it in this, it's kind of like he got an Oscar for The Thing, which he should have gotten.
I think that's what it was. It was kind of like a lifetime achievement.
Right. About damn time,
Cool. All right, so shall we go see what the chat's saying?
Yeah.
We can. Ben, I didn't know what your time appreciation was. If you want to stick around for the chat, that'd be great. If you can't, that's totally cool.
Stick around. I just have to go off camera for about 2 minutes. But
Sure.
I'll be.
Okay. All right, and thank you again to Ben from Cinema Goat being here. It's always great to have him here. Matt is in the chat. Ahoy, hoy, Matt!
Ahoy!
Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Antiderivative Jill is also here in the chat. Thank you so much, Jill. I still need to watch this movie, so I'll listen to the replay. Thanks for these reviews. Well, thank you for watching them. And I suppose now is as good a time as any is to say that Jill and I are going to be doing the Quantum Leap in the Loop, Quantum Leap recap, and that's going to be starting on September 8th.
Nice.
Can't wait for that.
Me too. Bacula. Stay the Course says, it is rather hateful, can't speak to the 8 or not. Yes. If there are no follow-up questions. Stay the Course says, poison cannot kill you. Cyanide would like to have a word.
Yes.
I don't know. Although throwing up blood, that was rather dramatic. Stay the Course in reference to John Ruth, nobody robs the hangman. I liked that sort of camaraderie at the beginning in the carriage.
And in a sense, he was right, because even though he didn't get to do it, she still got hanged.
Yep. Stay the Course says puts or putts. If you're attempting to say putts, it is spelled with a Z.
With a Zen?
Zed. A Zev.
Zev. Zev PM.
Oh, friend of the show, Black Philip Alvarez is here. Sorry I'm late. Oh, you can rewind. It's fine. Kat, did you want to take Phil's next chat?
Yeah, the movie is shot like a play to me, definitely.
Yeah.
Because a lot of earlier westerns were slow burn, but when I watched the extended version, I had to fast forward it a few times.
Thank you for that.
Fast forward, you're missing stuff. Then you start to realize you're not supposed to like any of these people. They're all despicable. Well, yeah, that's what. Yeah, hence the title.
Again, thank you for that insight, Bill.
Yeah, you're not going to be as engaged with the story. Maybe that's why you don't like. Okay, Stay the Course says mixer pack is no good. Just hit the pops.
Just the pops.
Just the pops? I was more of a Frosted Flakes guy myself.
When it came to those variety packs, man, pops. Because you get the most bang for your buck out of the pops box. Just saying.
Stay the Course says it's like a possession light.
You can learn all about it on our new podcast, a Kellogg's cereal review. It'll be over on Ben's channel starting next Sunday.
It's actually called
Blueberry Pancake.
Phil goes on to say, and Phil, don't listen to these people. I appreciate the fact that you went in to watch the movie. We're having conversations over the DMs, and you did say you hated it, so I'm glad that you went back and revisited it and found a little bit more enjoyment than the last time.
Yeah,
but cool. Phil says, there's not much I have to say about the movie. It's not my favorite Tarantino movie, but I just wanted to hear everyone else's take on it. Well, yeah. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Thanks for playing.
Stay the Course says the hotel is terribly spooky all on its own.
It's not a hotel, Stay the Course. It is a haberdashery, which I'm probably like you. I never knew existed before this movie. I never heard that word in my life.
I always thought it had something to do with chat or hats.
You can get many haberdashery T-shirts, by the way, on Amazon.
Haberdasheries and bodegas.
You know, if I liked the movie more, I would probably do that. I'm going to get a Red Apple T-shirt at some point. I know I will.
Stay the Course. The chili.
But it was the coffee that was poisoned.
Yeah.
Yep.
But you're right. Don't have the chili if you don't want to. There are other things on the menu. Phil says.
Do you think everybody would be drinking so much coffee if you had to go out in the freezing cold a half a mile to get to the shitter? Just saying. Like, you know, it is a laxative. You know,
it is a laxative, but
you're trying to stay warm, but coffee keeps you awake, makes you have to crap. Two things you don't want to do when you're trying to rest at a rest stop. I don't.
Right.
I would have been like John Rue, just been drinking the booze over with Bob.
Hi, have we met? Of course, me too. But no, but I think it's more of a heat thing. I always gave it. That's what I always gave these old westerns. They're drinking coffee is to warm you up. Phil says, I don't think Tarantino has a bad movie on his resume, but this one is on the bottom for me. 6 bullets.
Oh.
appreciate the review.
You said it sucked earlier on my chat, so sucked isn't bad.
So, well, six is pretty good.
But again, like when you're doing a sliding scale of Tarantino movies, even if you say this is the worst Tarantino movie, it's a 6.5.
I agree. 6.5 does not suck. I'm just saying. Sorry. Anyway.
Well, no. Again, qualifications, and flabbergasted cat. Phil is flabbergasted.
Wow, 10 bullets from Stephen Cat. Yeah, it's one of the ones for me that I like the most. For a bunch of different reasons. I think I've given. Is this the third movie I've given a 10 to, Scotty?
Second, I think you did give Reservoir Dogs a 10, but no, I don't think I have any more 10s from you.
Yeah, so this is the second one. Yep.
Good for you, man. I like Steve. Steve gets it. Like Steve gets it. Not that you don't, Scotty. I mean, obviously, Kat does. It's their favorite Tarantino movie.
Oh, that makes more sense. People under the stairs. PUTS. Gotcha.
Well, I kind of said that. I just meant people under the floor, but whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Either way, and stay the course. I thought you were referencing.
Fool wasn't.
When you said the hotel is creepy enough on its own, I thought you were referencing the Shinin. But don't forget,
it was a movie, by the way. Remember that movie? I don't think it was very good.
I haven't seen it.
What movie?
People Under the Stairs.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen that one either, but I've heard about it and known about it for a long time.
Yeah.
It's the most to me. It's Wes Craven being Spielberg.
Yeah.
In a Wes Craven way. It's got like adventure and weird things and myth and legend, but it's also very S&M and disturbing and violent. So,
Sounds like Wes Craven.
It's a wonderful movie.
Yeah. Of course, I was referencing the Shinning.
The Shinning.
Yes.
Phil asks, is there an after party show afterwards? There's always an after party going on in this haberdashery.
Right. Then you don't have to pay a cover charge.
And don't forget to nail the door shut on your way in. How do they get out?
The fire, they can't get out.
Yeah, I guess they don't really show them having to like pry it open every time. That's one detail that I don't think I bet you it's in there.
It's probably in there.
Yeah.
So
that will do it for the chat, and I think that'll do it for this episode.
Fantastic. Do all the things, like, share, and subscribe. Hit up the Fantasmagoriumshow.com for all of your needs in regards to our Fantasmagorium. You can always, as the ticker, you can get some merch, and it supports the channel. You can definitely, support us if you like us and have something to show for it. And people will be like, what exactly is a Fantasmagorium? And you can tell them all about it. Also, don't forget that Cinema Gulp has an
Scotty, you're froze.
extensive. Oh, I'm promoting Ben, so let Ben do it.
No, we have a new video essay that came out a couple days ago. It's not doing very good, like most of our stuff. So check it out. It's on the reason that we think that Cobra Kai is a successful show, and it's a theory that I don't think anyone else has really thought of. That's why I am smart and well thought out and well written. So yeah. So check that out. Yeah, well read. Yeah, so check that out. That's all I got on that.
But absolutely, go hit up Cinema Gulp.
We used to have merch, but we realized the $17 we made, me and John paid for those shirts. So the money went back in. You know, it's like a money laundering scheme. So
our stuff is print on demand, so it's pretty much free.
But
for our shows.
And like you said, Ben, you've got the Cobra Kai video that was just released this week was it on Sunday?
Sunday, yeah.
And but there is a fountain, there is a buffet, a veritable buffet, a haberdashery of so much content, video reviews, opinion pieces, so many good things. The weekly Cinema Gulp is something that's going on, so there is absolutely everything you could possibly need over there.
There's a huge pot of Hateful Eight stew.
Right.
At the Cinema Gulp YouTube channel. That delicious stew.
Huge pot of Cinema Gulp video stew. on the Cinema Gulp channel. Check it out for sure. Like and subscribe over there. Do all the things. Hit the little bell.
Thanks, guys.
And Kat, what do you do for a living? No, I'm joking. Sorry. Where can we find you on the internet?
You can find me every second and fourth Sunday of the month at 8 a.m. Pacific, co-hosting the Unifying Force, which is a Star Wars talk show on the Virtual Cantina Network YouTube channel. And, of course, you can find me here every Wednesday nights, currently at either 5 or 6. We go back and forth for our Bullets, Blades, and Babes series. Scotty, what are we doing? What are we covering next week?
Next week is going to be a little bit of a deviation. It is the Quentin Tarantino co-starring
Destiny Turns on the Radio.
Oh,
supernatural heist movie. I don't even know what it's about. I haven't seen it. But yeah, we're doing Destiny Turns on the Radio.
very cool.
And I guess that'll... and here we go. Phil says, I'd buy a Cinema Gulp t-shirt.
Rock on.
$75.
For you,
none left. They're all
80.
I can sell you one now, but the ring around the collar is really moth written at this point.
Ringer tease. Yeah, so I think that'll do it for us today. The show was great. Do check us out tomorrow. Scotty and I will be doing the She-Hulk after show review. That'll probably be around 1:00 Pacific time.
Around there.
Yep, we'll do that. We'll do that one live, and hopefully
Episode 2.
hopefully episode 2 is as good as episode 1 was. And,
Let's hope.
Other than that,
Let's hope it's better. Episode 1.
That's what I was thinking.
let's go get some stew.
Oh, yeah, let's get some stew. Don't drink the coffee.
Thanks, guys.